One of my favorite phrases is multiplication. And of course, if you're in network marketing, you probably have heard that before. Multiply, duplicate, things like that. Understanding how multiplication works in the sponsoring process. And most people don't understand this. And I'll tell you how I came to figure this out, at least this philosophy. I know that people have probably been around for a couple of thousand years, and the ideas that I come up with aren't necessarily original to me, but they are kind of like when I come up with them, if you know what I mean. So one of the things that I came up with trying to understand how things work is the philosophy of the multiplier of zero. If we were knocking on doors, obviously you can't show the product from the porch. The reality was that you had to get into the house to be able to show it. If you did the right presentation, even a bad one, but halfway decent presentation, you would close 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 if you really stuck up the joint. So the key ingredient was getting people inside the house. So people would come frustrated back to me and they would say things like, "I can't get in." Many times I found that by listening to them, I said, "Well, tell me what approach you're doing." They would tell me what's going on, and I would scratch my head as I'm doing now and say, "I don't understand why you're not getting in. I mean, it sounds like you're doing and saying everything right." So what would happen would be, I would knock on doors with them, and immediately I would find out what was wrong. And it was something most of the time very small. Remember, when they told me what they were doing, like when in the question and answer, I'm like, "What are you doing?" And they would say, "Well, I'm doing this and doing this and doing that." I'd say, "Well, that should work, that should work, that should work. This is the same stuff we teach." What I found was many times there was just some small little thing that needed to be done a little bit differently, but by not doing it the right way, it was like multiplying an equation by zero. And that's where we come up with the phrase, multiplier of zero. Let's talk about multiplication. That's where A times B equals C. When you get into the phrase multiplier of zero, what happens in a multiplication formula or a multiplication equation, when one of the factors happens to be, or one of the variables happens to be zero, what happens to the end result? The end result is it negates everything. Many times what happens is so many people do so many things right, but you have this little teeny variable that is, I call the multiplier of zero, that negates everything. That's one of the most frustrating things about our industry, specifically for me. I can't jump in my car, visit with you, and find out what your multiplier of zero might be when you're using our leads. But if you're not getting the results you should, chances are there's a multiplier of zero somewhere. So let's go through some of the variables that I've seen where you might have what I call your multiplier of zero. First one is your icebreaker. Your icebreaker could be, if you're calling over the phone, maybe it's not generating curiosity. Maybe it's not generating interest. Maybe there's no law of attraction going on. You know, if in relationship to email marketing or internet marketing or automated systems, maybe your subject line isn't something that gathers someone's attention. Maybe your multiplier of zero is there's some words in your email that allow it to be filtered by all these spam filters that are out there, and the email never gets through. You could do everything right on your email, but if it never gets through or never gets read or it doesn't look good on the browser that the person is looking at, these are all the multipliers of zero that could negate the end result that you're looking for. One of the major ones revolves around the word posture. You could do everything right, but if I take away the posture, again, it's going to negate or bring to zero your end result, so posture is probably one of the most important ones. Control is another one. If you've lost control, sometimes what happens is you'll start a conversation and you'll lose control, and all of a sudden you're in left field with the conversation. And then that's your multiplier of zero. You lost control, you lost your rhythm, it's pretty hard to get it back. Here's another one. How long you allow the whole process to take. Some of the multipliers of zero mean, there's a phrase that we use, think long, think wrong. Here's some other ones. Following up and following through. Your multiplier of zero in this one would be to think that the person you were talking to is at the same temperature as they were when you finished up with them on the last call. So again, one of those multipliers of zero is not popping them in the microwave, as we would say, meaning quickly warm them back up to the same emotional level that they were before. Here's another one. When you're asking people to make a decision or you're closing them on joining your business or however you want to use that phrase, there are two key elements. You have to offer something special and you have to offer a sense of urgency. As long as it's not zero, sometimes you get a pass, and as long as you string a lot of these multiples together, it still is going to come up to a positive value. So you don't have to worry about the multiplier of zero. So it's not like you have to handle all of these things all the time. But when the system breaks down, try to find out where that multiplier of 0 would be. And I need to explain that to you. It's a little bit like if you were a gal and you were going to be pregnant and have kids, like I could, we could explain all the stuff up front, and then I'd have to tell you that eventually your belly would swell a little bit. Maybe you might get a little bit irritated. Maybe you might have some pain. Maybe you might have some irritation. Maybe you might start to be nasty to people. I mean, forget about your head spinning around and asking for pizza or ice cream at 3 o'clock in the morning. But the reality is, these are the things that you're going to go through when you're pregnant. Could you imagine if you were a guy married to a gal that just got pregnant and you didn't understand that her belly would swell, or that maybe that when she says, "Oh my gosh, get out of the house," it's the hormones talking. So the reality here is that you have to understand these things, and again, just the understanding of how leads work could be one of those multipliers of 0. And sometimes they don't always happen when you're sitting right there. So the multiplier of 0 here would be, is when they get off the phone or off the internet or off whatever with you, many times there's these multipliers of 0 that happen when you're not around, meaning the negative input of someone that means something to these people. How many of your presentations have been completely squashed because of the well-meaning or destructive advice of a loved one or someone that someone is partnered or spoused with? So that could be one of the multipliers of 0. How about things like fear, maybe of changing their daily routine, fear of the potential of losing some money, fear of the fact that maybe I did these things a couple of times and they never seemed to work. All of those fears or those areas of hesitation and doubt could be those multipliers of 0 that, again, negate out everything that you've done. Some of those multipliers of 0 you have no control over. For instance, if you're emailing someone and they go to the website and the website's not up, that could be a multiplier of 0. People might take it the wrong way. One of the biggest ones, and don't want to leave out, this one, might be you. There is going to be some people that are attracted to you and not attracted to you. It could be a gender thing, like if you're a guy, guys might be attracted to guys, meaning in the recruiting process. If you're a guy, you might turn off a woman just by who you are, and I'm just giving some generalizations, and vice versa. Sometimes it might be you. It might be the things you can't control as being the multiplier of 0. And it only works if you start to analyze this stuff and apply it. Otherwise, hopefully you might have learned something on a superficial value, but probably won't make a tangible difference in your business. When you're doing your prospecting, you have to analyze and start to list what are the multipliers of 0 in this equation. Start to make those lists, and then when you're doing your presentation, maybe you can have those things in front of you initially, and pretty soon they're going to become ingrained in your subconscious mind. But have those in front of you, so when you're talking to someone, you know that you might be running across one of those multipliers of 0. You can do everything right, but when you reach that one little stumbling block, it will negate the end results, and the bottom line is you won't sponsor the person that you might have been if you were able to overcome that little multiplier of 0. If you need anything, you can always go back to our website, and I'm going to say good night for now. Thanks, and I'll speak to you soon.